All right, welcome to the inaugural broadcast, the podcast of Financial Revelations. People have been asking me to do a podcast for quite some time, mainly because on the radio, when we're on the radio, it's difficult to go into depth on the questions because if only one person has that question, you're going to lose all the other listeners. And so what we thought we would do is have a podcast where we could go into a little bit more depth about the questions that people have. So I'm gonna ask you to do me a favor. I want you to send me some questions, and you can email me. We're going to give you the email address. It's David at, and it's 4 letters, EPSF.com. David at EPSF.com. And you can go on our website and find it. It's EPSF.com. And you can email me right from there. And so if you have a question, I want you to send it in because we really want to answer your questions. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to interview people. We're going to bring in people from the outside. We work with a lot of entertainers and athletes and normal people too. And anybody that I say is normal, that's really a compliment because in the world of athletics and in the world of entertainment, there's nothing normal about how they get paid, how they vacation, how they buy a car. It's just not like anything most people will ever see. But I want to bring in some of that experience so people can see it, and it's really interesting stuff, and the people are really interesting, and I love them. And then we're also going to bring in and have some people come in that, we've helped with finance before. We've helped them with their accounts, or we've gotten them on a budget. So I want to bring in some of that practical experience that people have because a lot of people will benefit from that. A lot of the people that I see in my office, the first thing that we talk about is a budget. And a lot of people don't work on a budget. And so it's very difficult to track your finances if you don't have a budget. So we're going to talk about things like that. We're going to go into depth on things of that nature. And we're going to go into depth on your questions that you have for us at Financial Revelations. And we're going to do it with a biblical spin. In the world of finance today, and mainly in America, we live for right now. That's what we live for. If we want something, we buy it. We get on a credit card. And when we talk to people about biblical finances, it's really a different perspective. It's not about just what I can do for me today, but I want to show people, I want to give people the opportunity, one, to live a godly life with their money. And secondly, to really have an impact on the people and the world around them with their money too. Because our money is, one of the things that our money will do for us is it's going to expose who we really are. If I wanted to really find out who you were, I'd probably look in your checkbook. Where do you spend your money? What do you do with your money? Do you give? Do you support missions? Do you do those things? And I want people to see the blessings that I have received through giving money away. And I've often told people, if you really want to find out how you feel about money, give some away and see what it does to you. Do you feel like you lost out because you didn't have that money? So we're going to go into those questions. Or do you feel like, wow, I really blessed somebody. That was really great. I had an opportunity to bless somebody. That's where I want to get us to. I want to get you to the place where when you give money away, you see it as a blessing. And we're going to get there. It might take you some time. It's not easy if you've never done it before. So we're not going to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour overnight, but we will get you there. So we're going to go in depth on questions and answers. We're going to bring in people from the outside. When I travel to visit an athlete, I might interview them for the podcast, and we'll get that in and edit it and along with some of your questions and get a little bit of their perspective. So I think it'll be interesting to you. Now, the date is November 12th. This is going to go live probably early next week, but we just came through an election that isn't totally decided yet. And I have had just dozens and dozens and dozens of questions about the election, what's going to happen. Well, as of the date of this taping, we do not really know yet who the declared winner is. We think we know. It's being challenged in court. Joe Biden is the president-elect for now. Donald Trump is challenging the outcome of the election. There's going to be a hand count of every ballot in Georgia. The results in Arizona are being challenged in court. The results in Pennsylvania are being challenged in court, and likewise Michigan. So what I want to do is I want to proceed. I want to give you two potential outcomes from the election and talk about it, how it's going to relate to our finances. Number one, let's say that it stays the way it is right now and Joe Biden is actually elected president and we have a Republican Senate and a Democrat House. So if that were to happen, the things that the market was most afraid of, which would have been this big blue wave that took over the two houses and got the president, didn't happen. And so we're going to have a much more muted response in the Senate to any tax hikes, any court packing that was talked about in the election. Things like bans on fracking would be very difficult to accomplish. The Green New Deal, very difficult to get through a Republican Senate. In fact, it's not going to get through a Republican Senate. That is really good for the market. When you look at the election, when you look at divided government, the market loves divided government because no one plan is going to go through carte blanche. Everything is going to be challenged, and the market loves that. And so if Joe Biden is elected president and the House is going to stay Democrat, we know that already, but if the Senate stays Republican, that would be, from a market perspective, a pretty decent outcome. There will be stimulus. And stimulus is very accretive for the market. It's going to help the market because it's going to put money in people's pockets. There might even be an infrastructure bill, which would be very accretive for the markets also and very market positive. So if those two things happen, I would see the market going up. Now, we also did get positive vaccine news over the weekend. That is really good for the market. Now, that's going to take a while to really filter through the market because it's not going to be available to everybody right away. I look for a runway of about 12 to 18 months of the vaccine coming out and being dispersed to everybody who wants it. That's going to be really good for things like travel stocks, airlines, airplane makers, theme parks. Anything that was working pretty well before COVID is going to get a huge boost after the vaccine really starts to go live. And so I would be really focusing on some of those areas also. But it's going to be good overall for the market. It's going to be great for restaurant stocks. It's going to be great for anything where you weren't able to gather after February and people just got laid off. You know, in Ohio, bars and restaurants have to close at 10 o'clock. So for a bar that would normally have been open for 4 more hours, that's a lot of lost revenue. And some of them don't even open every day of the week now because there's just not enough people coming out. All that's going to change. So I really look for a positive market impact from the vaccine. Now, let's say that Donald Trump wins his challenge and he is reelected president. And so he's going to serve a second term, and you have a Republican House and a Republican Senate, Democrat House. I think that you're going to see a lot of things similar to pre-COVID. I think you're going to see tough on China, which is good for America. You're going to see tough on the world, especially the bad actors of the world. One of the things that Donald Trump did for the world was he kind of put these bad actors in check. When we missiled the Iranian general in Iraq, it sent a very clear message to people around the world that there's no place that you're going to be safe if you're coming to kill us. And I think that really helped the markets or the world behave, which helps markets. The other thing that has continued on, and it didn't start under Donald Trump, it started under George Bush, continued through the Obama administration, is that fracking and horizontal drilling and directional drilling and exploration really expanded dramatically. What that did is it took Saudi Arabia out of the driver's seat. That's going to continue. Saudi Arabia right now has absolutely no power in the world because we're the number one oil and gas producer. That's not going to change. Now, if Joe Biden gets elected, there might be some pushback on drilling on public lands, but by and large, that's a small part of the oil and gas drilling that's going on right now. I don't think it would have a powerful negative impact. So I look for gas prices to stay relatively low and the Middle East starting to become a place that is a more peaceful place, because we have seen a lot of peace deals in the last several months with Israel. This is unheard of. Now, they're relatively small countries, but what's happening is because the price of oil and natural gas is so inexpensive around the world, they're losing economic power. They have to start exploring different ways for their economies to thrive. And one of the ways in the Middle East is make a peace deal with a very prosperous and wealthy nation of Israel and sell to them. And that's what's happening. So the cost of oil being cheap has really led to peace deals happening for Israel. And it's creating a more stable environment in the Middle East. I think that's going to continue under a President Trump administration if the challenges are successful. If the challenges aren't successful and Joe Biden gets elected, which is what it's looking like right now, I think a lot of that could continue. I don't know if it would be at the pace it is right now, but I don't think that the countries that made peace deals with Israel are going to go back on those or nullify them because they're really good for everybody economically. And I think you'll see those things stick. Now, there might be a slowing down of that activity while we wait to see exactly what the oil and gas drilling does in a Biden administration. But I think the results of the election mainly going to be good for the markets as long as there's a Republican-held Senate. If the Republicans lose the Senate, you are probably going to see some tax increases. You're going to see capital gains increases. You'll probably see the new Green Deal or the Green New Deal, whatever it's called. Hopefully we don't see it get implemented because it's not, economically, it's not very good. On the contrary, I don't think that's going to happen. So as far as the election goes, there's still some uncertainty, but I think we're going to have a lot more clarity in the coming months. So questions. I want you to send me questions to Financial Revelations, the name of this podcast. We're going to be on Spotify. We're going to be on iTunes. We're going to be on YouTube. Who knows where else we'll be? It's the internet. I hear this thing's going to really take off someday. So you can send me questions from anywhere in the world to David at epsf.com. David at epsf.com. And you can find us on the web at epsf.com. As always, all questions are welcome. I probably won't answer every question, and I think we're going to probably do a rapid fire round too, just so we can get through some. As far as individual stock questions go, I'm a little hesitant to do that only because I'd like to know a little bit more about your situation before I recommend individual stocks. So I probably will take some individual stock questions, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about market sectors in general. And I think that's a healthy way to invest. So when somebody says, hey, what do you think about Pfizer? I say, well, in relation to your portfolio, I don't know. I like the company. They're coming out with a vaccine right now. That's positive news for Pfizer. So that's going to be really good for the company. But is it really good? Is it appropriate for your portfolio? So I want to talk a lot about the appropriateness for you. So sometimes people will come to me and say, hey, do you have a hot stock tip? I say, yeah, build a portfolio and be a long-term investor. That's my hot stock tip. People don't like to hear that a lot of times because they want to hear something where they're going to make 5% in the next 20 days. Those things, while they do happen, especially it seems like this year they happened a lot, they're more rare than they are common. What I like to think about, what I like to invest in, is I like to invest in time, longevity, pick things that I think are going to do well over time, and then own those things. And in portfolios, think of a pizza. If you have kids, this would be a great analogy. So you ordered a pizza. You got 5 kids at home and 2 adults, and they're hungry. We're starving. And you get this, you get this huge pizza, and it shows up, and you open the box, and all the pieces are cut unevenly. Some are really big, and some are really small. Well, this is survival of the fittest, right? The kid that's the quickest and the strongest is going to get the biggest piece. So as far as pizzas go, that's horrible. You don't want to see that happen. But when it comes to a portfolio, it's really good. So you have this big piece in your portfolio. It might be something a little bit more conservative, a little bit more staid and true. And then you have these tiny pieces, these little slivers. They tend to be more aggressive pieces. And when that little tiny piece grows too much, you want to cut some off and spread it around the portfolio. And that's the way we think about portfolio investing. That's the way we think about portfolio investing at Financial Revelations and what we do for a living. We want to take risk in smaller pieces. We want to have other things in bigger pieces that we can lean on long term. So things like biotech, a little bit smaller piece. Things like new companies, a little bit smaller piece. That's how you manage a portfolio. Now, if you're 25, your aggressive pieces, they might be a little bit bigger than if you're 65. Those pieces might be a little bit smaller. And even when you're 75, you're still going to be invested. If you make it to 75, the odds are that you're going to live to be 95. So that's 20 years later, right? Your money still needs to grow. You still need to be growing that money so you can increase your income as time goes on. And we're going to talk about this next podcast. We're going to talk about 2 ways to manage your money in retirement. We're going to talk about the capital retention approach, and we're going to talk about the capital depletion approach. One you're really going to like, and one you're not. So I'm going to tell you about them, and I'm going to teach you about them, how we do it. And that's what you're going to do in retirement. Whether you invest your money yourself or with an advisor, you're going to know how to do this. And the more information that you take into your advisor, the better off you're going to be. It's like when you go to see a doctor. You know, if your doctor said, oh, by the way, you have these 3 conditions and we need to do something right now, you might say, Doc, that's great. I think I'd like to research it, maybe get a second opinion. You should do the same thing with your advisor. You should have some knowledge when you walk in there. So, one, you know that what they're recommending is in your best interest and it's cost appropriate for what you want to pay. And secondly, you're going to know it's the right thing for you. So we're going to give you that knowledge. Thank you for joining us on the first Financial Revelations. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to interviewing people. I already have about 10 interviews lined up. I just have to get to the people. Some we might do over the phone. You can do this on Skype, is really great to do interviews on. And hopefully we'll get some video of the people too, because I want you to see their facial reactions when I ask them questions they don't expect. So one of the things that I've done in my life is I've made a career of making people feel uncomfortable at times. And I kind of like that because it draws them out of their shell. I'm going to do that for you. So thanks for joining us today. Looking forward to it. And I love your questions. So send in your questions, David@epsf.com. And we will see you on the next Financial Revelations podcast.